Hello and welcome to Culture Vulture 3, the third one of my look at culture and various ways of trying to sort out what is it? What do we mean when we say the word culture? In the first video, I looked at this book, Culture and Anarchy by Matthew Arnold, and in the second program, that sounds like a television thing, second video, I looked at this one, Raymond Williams, Culture and Society. Now, those two books are chosen for a reason, and that's because they seem to represent at least two sides, two different approaches to what culture might be, what we mean by it. And unusually and controversially, perhaps, I'm going to talk about the preface, the introduction or preface to this book here, because it sets out to answer the question, what is culture? And it doesn't quite answer it, of course, but it begins an answer to that question. And the book is called Modern Culture, and it's by Roger Scruton, who some people will love and some people loathe, depending on what side of the culture wars you might find yourself. And perhaps culture wars is something I might cover later when we've discovered it. It's actually chapter 1, so it's neither the preface nor introduction or anything. It's chapter 1. What is culture? And he sets up the two views, the Arnoldian view and the Williams view, as two different ways of seeing culture. And he puts those two sides back to some Germans or Germanic types. And I'll read what he says, because it's quite useful to get the argument sorted out, and this really does help. The concept of culture leapt fully armed from the head of Johann Gottfried Herder in the mid-18th century, and has been embroiled in battles ever since. Kultur, for Herder, is the lifeblood of a people, the flow of moral energy that holds society intact. Civilization, by contrast, is the veneer of manners, law, and technical know-how. Nations may share a civilization, but they will always be distinct in their culture, since culture defines what they are. Now, this culture is wide-ranging idea, starts to go into two directions, he says. The German Romantics, Schelling, Schiller, Fichte, Hegel, and Hölderlin, construed culture in Herder's way, as the defining essence of a nation, a shared spiritual force, which is manifest in all the customs, beliefs, and practices of a people. Culture shapes language, art, religion, history, leaves its stamp on the smallest event, and no member of society, and this is crucial, however ill-educated, is deprived of culture, since culture and social membership are the same idea. So, it's not about sweetness and light, it's not about the best that's been thought, said, and done. It's breathed in, it's around you, it's life itself, it's the life force in which you find yourself. But a more classical approach is summed up by von Humboldt, founding father, he says here, of the modern university. Culture meant not untended growth, but cultivation. Not everyone possesses it, since not everyone has the leisure, the inclination, or the ability to learn what is needed. And among cultivated people, some are more cultivated than others. The purpose of a university, for von Humboldt, is to preserve and enhance the cultural inheritance and to impart it to the next generation. That's the best that's been thought and said sort of idea. And Scruton says, well, both ideas are with us. The early anthropologists adopt the former, and the practice and beliefs, the self-identity of a tribe, a group, anything that sort of brings a group of human people together. And every member of that grouping possesses the culture. We have it, whether we know it or not. It's the way we do things here. Whereas Matthew Arnold and Scruton also includes Eliot, Leavis, Pound, followed Humboldt in treating culture as the property of an educated elite, an attainment which involves intellect and study. So now, these both could be true, of course, and he goes on to talk about these two things throughout the book, by distinguishing them between high culture and common culture, a culture we have in common, not culture that's common, culture we hold in common. So it's not exactly a dichotomy in those terms. Now, he also pins his colours to the mast and says he is more inclined towards the Arnoldian view. Now, I'll pin my colours to the mast if I may, and I am more inclined to the Williams point of view, if you like, which is the idea of a culture we hold in common. But that in itself is hugely problematic because where are those lines drawn? So I'm not going to say that is it, it's the we and all those things. I'm certainly not going to pin my colours that easily because this is a long way to go yet, this whole idea. So those two opposing ideas. Now, if we think of school as a place that gives us the high culture, the elitist culture, the culture that only some of you are going to get, that it's an intellectual culture, a way to the finer things, and we eschew the idea of a common culture, a world we hold in common, then are we saying that the education we provide is for everyone? And vice versa. If we say it's a common culture, and this is all about what holds us together and binds us together, are we eschewing the notion that some things are better than other things? That this is what you could be looking at, but we're not going to. We're going to just look at the things that hold a nation together, whatever we decide a nation is. And therefore, this is a problem. And certainly I can see the problem coming like a train down the tracks towards me, that both those things aren't quite workable, but they are the argument, if you like. Now, beyond that, there is popular culture as well, which is slightly different to the culture we hold in common. And the concept of culture here was extended to describe the forms of popular art and entertainment in modern conditions. Now, he's talking here about cultural studies, the discipline that Raymond Williams helped found. And he talks about popular culture being two kinds. There's the inherited and the acquired. And the way that globalization has sort of stamped upon inherited folk culture, especially in more advanced societies, whatever we mean by that, and replaced by, and I'll use Scruton's words here, remember this is someone on the right, their replacement by commercialized mishmash. So the stamp of popular culture is just commercial. And this is where he actually comes together with Williams and, funnily enough, Adorno and various other people in looking at culture that is commercial, that is fed to us, and we consume it and put our little stars on Amazon and TripAdvisor and popular in that sense is good, takes away what is good, which might not, of course, be popular. It might be for an elite, it might be specialized taste. So elite in the terms of a few rather than the better. But is it the better to like the best? And only the better can like the best? Well, these are problematic ideas, of course. Right, Herder's idea of culture is particularist. A culture is defined as something separate, an island of we in an ocean of they. Humboldt's conception is universalist, the cultivated person. For Humboldt sees mankind as a whole, knows the art and literature of other peoples, and sympathizes with human life in all its higher forms and aspirations. Why use the same word for two such conflicting ideas? Why talk about common culture and high culture as though they were in some deep way connected? And this is Scruton here. As an educated person, I sympathize with Humboldt and Matthew Arnold. As an old-fashioned Englishman, I lean towards Herder. One of my motives for writing this book is a sense that these two sympathies are fed from a common source. Right, so I'm not going to carry on with this any further, but I just think it beautifully sets out some sort of idea. Now, in further editions, I'm going to look at evolution and how culture perhaps emerged from evolution. I'm also going to look at colonialism, and the work of C.L.R. James comes into it. And also I'm going to look at the lies that bind, and identity, Damasio's book here. And what else? I've got two other books, I think. Or is it one? No, here we are. 1, 2. They're right over there. There's Beyond the Boundary, which is James. And Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists here. So I'll be covering that in future editions and then beyond, and perhaps until I get bored of trying to find out what is culture.